Abram journeys from Haran to Shechem in Canaan, thence to Hebron and thence to Egypt, 1-14a. Returns to Canaan where Lot separates from him, and receives the promise of Canaan and journeys to Hebron, 14b, 21. Kedorlaomer's attack on Sodom and Gomorrah, Lot taken captive, 22-24. Law of tithes enacted, 25-29. And Abram journeyed from Haran, and he took Sarai, his wife, and Lot, his brother Haran's son, to the land of Canaan, and he came into Ashur, and proceeded to Shechem, and dwelt near a lofty oak. And he saw, and, behold, the land was very pleasant from the entering of Hamath to the lofty oak. And the Lord said to him, To thee and to thy seed will I give this land. And he built an altar there, and he offered thereon a burnt sacrifice to the Lord, who had appeared to him. And he removed from thence unto the mountain Bethel on the west and Ai on the east, and pitched his tent there. And he saw and behold, the land was very wide and good, and everything grew thereon vines and figs and pomegranates, oaks and ilexes, and terebinths and oil trees, and cedars and cypresses and date trees, and all trees of the field, and there was water on the mountains. And he blessed the Lord who had led him out of Ur of the Chaldees, and had brought him to this land. And it came to pass in the 1st year, in the 7th week, on the new moon of the 1st month, that he built an altar on this mountain, and called on the name of the Lord. Thou, the eternal God, art my God. And he offered on the altar a burnt sacrifice unto the Lord that he should be with him and not forsake him all the days of his life. And he removed from thence and went towards the south, and he came to Hebron, and Hebron was built at that time, and he dwelt there 2 years, and he went thence into the land of the south, to Bealoth, and there was a famine in the land. And Abram went into Egypt in the 3rd year of the week, and he dwelt in Egypt 5 years before his wife was torn away from him. Now Tanis in Egypt was at that time built, 7 years after Hebron. And it came to pass when Pharaoh seized Sarai, the wife of Abram, that the Lord plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. And Abram was very glorious by reason of possessions in sheep, and cattle, and asses, and horses, and camels, and menservants, and maidservants, and in silver and gold exceedingly. And Lot also, his brother's son, was wealthy. And Pharaoh gave back Sarai, the wife of Abram, and he sent him out of the land of Egypt, and he journeyed to the place where he had pitched his tent at the beginning, to the place of the altar, with Ai on the east, and Bethel on the west, and he blessed the Lord his God who had brought him back in peace. And it came to pass in the 41st Jubilee, in the 3rd year of the 1st week, that he returned to this place and offered thereon a burnt sacrifice, and called on the name of the Lord, and said, Thou, the Most High God, art my God for ever and ever. And in the 4th year of this week Lot parted from him, and Lot dwelt in Sodom, and the men of Sodom were sinners exceedingly. And it grieved him in his heart that his brother's son had parted from him, for he had no children. In that year when Lot was taken captive, the Lord said unto Abram, after that Lot had parted from him, in the 4th year of this week, Lift up thine eyes from the place where thou art dwelling, northward and southward, and westward and eastward. For all the land which thou sayest I shall give to thee and to thy seed forever, and I shall make thy seed as the sand of the sea, though a man may number the dust of the earth, yet thy seed shall not be numbered. Arise, walk through the land in the length of it and the breadth of it, and see it all, for to thy seed shall I give it. And Abram went to Hebron, and dwelt there. And in this year came Kedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Amraphel, king of Shinar, and Arioch, king of Selasar, and Turgal, king of nations, and slew the king of Gomorrah, and the king of Sodom fled, and many fell through wounds in the vale of Siddim, by the salt sea. And they took captive Sodom and Adam and Zeboim, and they took captive Lot also, the son of Abram's brother, and all his possessions, and they went to Dan. And one who had escaped came and told Abram that his brother's son had been taken captive, and Abram armed his household servants. For Abram, and for his seed, 1/10 of the firstfruits to the Lord, and the Lord ordained it as an ordinance forever that they should give it to the priests who served before him, that they should possess it forever. And to this law there is no limit of days, for he hath ordained it for the generations forever that they should give to the Lord the 10th of everything, of the seed and of the wine and of the oil and of the cattle and of the sheep. And he gave it unto his priests to eat and to drink with joy before him. And the king of Sodom came to him and bowed himself before him, and said, Our lord Abram, give unto us the souls which thou hast rescued, but let the booty be thine. And Abram said unto him, I lift up my hands to the Most High God, that from a thread to a shoelatchet I shall not take aught that is thine, lest thou shouldst say I have made Abram rich, save only what the young men have eaten, and the portion of the men who went with me Aner, Eshol, and Mamre. These will take their portion. 14. Abram receives the promise of a son and of innumerable descendants, 1-7. Offers a sacrifice and is told of his seed being in Egypt, 8-17. God's covenant with Abram, 18-20. Hagar bears Ishmael, 21-24. After these things, in the 4th year of this week, on the new moon of the 3rd month, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a dream, saying, Fear not, Abram, I am thy defender, and thy reward will be exceeding great. And he said, Lord, Lord, what wilt thou give me, seeing I go hence childless, and the son of Masech, the son of my handmaid, is the Damasek Eliezer, he will be my heir, and to me thou hast given no seed. And he said unto him, This man will not be thy heir, but one that will come out of thine own bowels, he will be thine heir. And he brought him forth abroad, and said unto him, Look toward heaven and number the stars, if thou art able to number them. And he looked toward heaven, and beheld the stars. And he said unto him, So shall thy seed be. And he believed in the Lord, and it was counted to him for righteousness. And he said unto him, I am the Lord that brought thee out of Ur of the Chaldees, to give thee the land of the Canaanites to possess it forever, and I shall be God unto thee and to thy seed after thee. And he said, Lord, Lord, whereby shall I know that I shall inherit it? And he said unto him, Take me an heifer of 3 years, and a goat of 3 years, and a sheep of 3 years, and a turtle dove, and a pigeon. And he took all these in the middle of the month, and he dwelt at the oak of Mamre, which is near Hebron. And he built there an altar, and sacrificed all these, and he poured their blood upon the altar, and divided them in the midst, and laid them over against each other, but the birds divided he not. And birds came down upon the pieces, and Abram drove them away, and did not suffer the birds to touch them. And it came to pass, when the sun had set, that an ecstasy fell upon Abram, and lo, an horror of great darkness fell upon him, and it was said unto Abram, Know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and they will bring them into bondage, and afflict them 400 years. And the nation also to whom they will be in bondage shall I judge, and after that they will come forth thence with much substance. And thou wilt go to thy fathers in peace, and be buried in a good old age. But in the 4th generation they will return hither, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full. And he awoke from his sleep, and he arose, and the sun had set and there was a flame, and behold, a furnace was smoking, and a flame of fire passed between the pieces. And on that day the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, To thy seed will I give this land, from the river of Egypt unto the great river, the river Euphrates, the Kenite, the Kenizzites, the Cadmonites, the Perizzites, and the Rephaim, the Phacharites, and the Hivites, and the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Girgashites, and the Jebusites. And the clay passed, and Abram offered the pieces, and the birds, and their fruit offerings, and their drink offerings, and the fire devoured them. And on that day we made a covenant with Abram, according as we had covenanted with Noah in this month, and Abram renewed the festival and ordinance for himself forever. And Abram rejoiced, and made all these things known to Sarai his wife, and he believed that he would have seed, but she did not bear. And Sarai advised her husband Abram, and said, Go in unto Hagar, my Egyptian maid, it may be that I shall build up seed unto thee by her. And Abram hearkened unto the voice of Sarai his wife, and said unto her, Do so. And Sarai took Hagar, her maid, the Egyptian, and gave her to Abram, her husband, to be his wife. And he went in unto her, and she conceived and bare him a son, and he called his name Ishmael, in the 5th year of this week, and this was the 86th year in the life of Abram. Chapter 15. Abram celebrates the feast of firstfruits, 1, 2. His name changed and circumcision instituted, 3-14. Sarai, name changed and Isaac, promised, 15-21. Abraham, Ishmael, and all his household circumcised, 22-24. Circumcision and eternal ordination, 25-26. Israel shares this honor with the highest angels who were created circumcised, 27-29. Israel subject to God alone, other nations to angels, 30-32. Future faithlessness of Israel, 33-34. And in the 5th year of the 4th week of this Jubilee, in the 3rd month, in the middle of the month, Abram celebrated the feast of the firstfruits of the grain harvest. And he offered new offerings on the altar, the firstfruits of the produce, unto the Lord, an heifer and a goat and a sheep on the altar as a burnt sacrifice unto the Lord, their fruit offerings and their drink offerings he offered upon the altar with frankincense. And the Lord, I am God Almighty, approve thyself before me and be thou perfect. And I will make my covenant between me and thee, and I will multiply thee exceedingly. And Abram fell on his face, and God talked with him, and said, Behold, my ordinance is with thee, and thou wilt be the father of many nations. Neither will thy name any more be called Abram, but thy name from henceforth, even forever, shall be Abraham. For the father of many nations have I made thee. And I shall make thee very great. And I shall make thee into nations. And kings will come forth from thee. And I shall establish my covenant between me and thee, and thy seed after thee, throughout their generations, for an eternal covenant, so that I may be a God unto thee, and to thy seed after thee. And I shall give to thee and to thy seed after thee the land where thou hast been a sojourner, the land of Canaan, that thou mayst possess it forever, and I shall be their God. And the Lord said unto Abraham, And as for thee, do thou keep my covenant, thou and thy seed after thee, and circumcise ye every male among you, and circumcise your foreskins, and it will be a token of an eternal covenant between me and you. And the child on the 8th day ye will circumcise, every male throughout your generations, him that is born in the house, or whom ye have bought with money from any stranger, whom ye have acquired who is not of thy seed. He that is born in thy house will surely be circumcised, and those whom thou hast bought with money will be circumcised, and my covenant will be in your flesh for an eternal ordinance. And the uncircumcised male who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin on the 8th day, that soul will be cut off from his people, for he has broken my covenant. And God said unto Abraham, As for Sarai thy wife, her name will no more be called Sarai, but Sarah will be her name. And I shall bless her, and give thee a son by her, and I shall bless him, and he will become a nation, and kings of nations will proceed from him. And Abraham fell on his face, and rejoiced, and said in his heart, Shall a son be born to him that is 100 years old, and shall Sarah, who is 90 years old, bring forth? And Abraham said unto God, O that Ishmael might live before thee. And God said, Yea, and Sarah also will bear thee a son, and thou wilt call his name Isaac, and I shall establish my covenant with him, an everlasting covenant, and for his seed after him. And as for Ishmael also have I heard thee, and behold I shall bless him, and make him great, and multiply him exceedingly, and he will beget 12 princes, and I shall make him a great nation. But my covenant shall I establish with Isaac, whom Sarah will bear to thee, in these days, in the next year. And he left off speaking with him, and God went up from Abraham. And Abraham did according as God had said unto him, and he took Ishmael his son, and all that were born in his house, and whom he had bought with his money, every male in his house, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskin. And on the selfsame day was Abraham circumcised, and all the men of his house, and those born in the house, and all those, whom he had bought with money from the children of the stranger, were circumcised with him. This law is for all the generations forever, and there is no circumcision of the days, and no omission of 1 day out of the 8 days, for it is an eternal ordinance, ordained and written on the heavenly tables. And every one that is born, the flesh of whose foreskin is not circumcised on the 8th day, belongs not to the children of the covenant which the Lord made with Abraham, but to the children of destruction, nor is there, moreover, any sign on him that he is the Lord's, but he is destined to be destroyed and slain from the earth, and to be rooted out of the earth, for he has broken the covenant of the Lord our God. For all the angels of the presence and all the angels of sanctification have been so created from the day of their creation, and before the angels of the presence and the angels of sanctification he hath sanctified Israel, that they should be with him and with his holy angels. And do thou command the children of Israel and let them observe the sign of this covenant for their generations as an eternal ordinance, and they will not be rooted out of the land. For the command is ordained for a covenant, that they should observe it forever among all the children of Israel. For Ishmael and his sons and his brothers and Esau, the Lord did not cause to approach him, and he chose them not because they are the children of Abraham, because he knew them, but he chose Israel to be his people. And he sanctified it, and gathered it from amongst all the children of men, for there are many nations and many peoples, and all are his, and over all hath he placed spirits in authority to lead them astray from him. But over Israel he did not appoint any angel or spirit, for he alone is their ruler, and he will preserve them and require them at the hand of his angels and his spirits, and at the hand of all his powers in order that he may preserve them and bless them, and that they may be his and he may be theirs from henceforth forever. And now I announce unto thee that the children of Israel will not keep true to this ordinance, and they will not circumcise their sons according to all this law, for in the flesh of their circumcision they will omit this circumcision of their sons, and all of them, sons of Beliar, will leave their sons uncircumcised as they were born. And there will be great wrath from the Lord against the children of Israel, because they have forsaken his covenant and turned aside from his word, and provoked and blasphemed, inasmuch as they do not observe the ordinance of this law, for they have treated their members like the Gentiles, so that they may be removed and rooted out of the land. And there will no more be pardon or forgiveness unto them, so that there should be forgiveness and pardon for all the sin of this eternal error.